Since the very beginning of Marvel movies, there have always been subliminal messages in all of them. These messages sometimes revolved around things that we would be going through within the year or sometimes even the next few months. And I know a lot of movies do that, but this moment in particular, I'm talking about Avengers Infinity War, a movie that came out at the end of a decade and actually started the beginning of a new. It was not a coincidence. The event of Infinity War predicted an event that we really went through, a global event that we really went through as people. A lot of people don't believe that movies come out and revolve around plots that happen just before the world goes through that same situation. A lot of people think that it's a conspiracy. And no matter what people do believe, Avengers Infinity War is a prime example of, hey, this issue is happening right now, or an issue happens, and soon after the movie comes out, it really does happen in real life. The reason why I bring that up is because it paved a way into the main topic I would like to talk about, which is the new movie Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. There were a lot of messages in that movie, but I'm going to focus on three main points of it. I want to mainly focus on the multiverse of the mind, of time. I also want to talk about light and dark and love, and just how this movie brought those three things together. I told myself I wasn't going to do any messages on any Marvel movie after Endgame, but unless there was an exception. I did do the Eternals. I felt like that was a very important message there, which was no matter how diverse our ideals are or what we think, we could still get along with each other. We don't have to agree on the same thing, But this was another exception because it was a recommendation from someone that I actually care about. So that is the reason why I'm doing this movie. Now, the multiverse is a very complex idea. It is a very complex concept. It is the idea that the same space can actually be occupied by different things at the same time, even if we don't see it, even if we don't hear it. And it's more like when it comes to the multiverse of the mind, all of us have different sides to each other. The multiverse exists not only as an idea of reality, but it also exists in the human experience. The human experience is a reflection of the universe itself. So when you talk about the human experience and how it is reflected from the idea of the multiverse, what we mainly talk about are the different sides and the different layers of the human experience. There is no one perfect way to experience life as a human because we are all different and we all have different sides to us which do contradict us. They contradict our creation. They contradict our thoughts, our ambitions, is who we are, our desires, what we want to do, how we want to reach a goal, sometimes how we want to do something, who we want to be, and what we've gone through contradict each other and create an internal conflict. The idea of the multiverse is that we are infinite beings in what we feel and what we experience and how we develop. Going further into that, the multiverse of the mind is also about every part of ourselves and who we are. our light side, our shadow side, our inner child, our ambitions, our goals, our dreams, our traumas, things like that. Many different sides to us that are unchecked, unexplained, unseen, unrecognized. They all they all exist within us. They all coexist at the same time within our mind. But we dominantly experience one emotion, one mindset, one idea. Usually at this usually at once we experience these things, but somewhere in our mind they are always existent at every moment of the day, every second of every moment. Our mind holds on to every part of us, but we dominantly feel one at a time. Now, in the multiverse of madness, I bring that up because there were multiple Doctor Stranges. Now, in America, and Doctor Strange, met in, I guess, the 616 universe or whatever. She tells Doctor Strange, hey, the alternate version of yourself was trying to kill me. In the 616, the canon, our universe, Doctor Strange at one point says, you can't control your power, even I can do that. And even at one point, you could tell Doctor Strange was considering taking America's power, to take her power for himself to stop the threat that was in front of him. But because she did mention to him that, hey, a version of yourself did try to do that to me, then he was able to recognize that he is capable of doing that. Even if you think about the alternate versions of yourself, the alternate versions of what you can be, of what you could be, the truth is you could always still access those parts of yourself no matter what. Even by just envisioning how a life could be, since sometimes you could still get there. Now, a lot of people will look at the past and they'll think about choices that they wish that they could change. But the thing is, what you do now is what is important. And I will say that right now, what you do now and how you evolve is what's important. Even if you want to be an alternate version of yourself, you can still find that within yourself and you can still manifest that. You can still create it. Now, I do feel like that's more of a soft spot and people will fight that idea. So I'm not going to dwell on it. I could just feel it. But in the movie of Doctor Strange met different versions of himself. He was told about different versions of himself and met different versions of himself. The thing that made all of them connected is the fact that there is a root Strange. There is a root Doctor Strange. And the thing is, when it comes to the multiverse, every single version of Doctor Strange basically did the same thing, because at the end of the day, no matter how different every part of ourselves is, there's always a root. There's always that root that we are is the potential of who we can become and what we can do, how we can influence. And as Doctor Strange met each version of himself, he was able to face each version of himself. He was able to face what he was capable of that he probably didn't think he could be capable of, or what he never thought he'd go down that route. But the thing is, it was possible for him to go there. And when he met, then he was able to face them and deal with them accordingly. And that is the same thing for what we can do as people, as in we can face versions of ourselves, different versions of who we are, different versions of what we're capable of what we've gone through, of our goals, our desires, things like that. No matter how different each side of us is, there is a core to all of us. There's a core, and that core is basically what we are, what we actually are. And every influence that we have, everything that we experience, our families, our bloodlines, there are so many different things that can just redefine our character and just expand our character. But who we are at our source is always going to remain the same, no matter how different life is, no matter how different the trajectory of our lives is, or our future is. And we all of us can look in the mirror at some point and look at ourselves, and we can look and see, that's not me. I don't recognize that person in the mirror. Or sometimes we can look and say, I didn't realize how broken I was. I didn't realize how much this situation or this person actually changed me for the worst, or, maybe for the better. But we have the ability to know that, to recognize when parts of ourselves aren't right. And sometimes we do meet our dark sides. And when we do meet our dark side, we are able to see how far we can go with certain things, what we're capable of doing, how we're capable of hurting someone, or what we're capable of doing to another person in the world. Just once we see our dark side, the dark side can be different for people, but once we do meet, the darker side of who we are, then we can learn to accept, hey, this is actually a part of me. There may be an alternate version of you, an alternate universe of you. There may be a different personality version of you, but at the root core, it is just you. And any kind of alternate expression, alternate name, alternate whatever, is still a piece of your core, of our core. And once you do make peace with it, then you can really learn to embody the truth of who you are, the wholeness of who you are. But you cannot do that if you are too afraid to accept every part of yourself, to understand every part of yourself. And if you reject parts of yourself, you will never have control of who you really are, and you will never know how to fully reach your maximum potential. As long as you constantly deny parts of yourself, then you will always be a subject to outside influence. And when that happens, a lot of our unchecked versions of ourselves, or a lot of turmoils that we go through inside, can be very heavily influenced by what we take on or what we're exposed to externally. And when that happens, that's when parts of ourselves begin to get molded in strange directions that we don't even recognize, that we don't even know. The importance of understanding both the light side and the dark side within ourselves is sort of like a plant, where a flower will always grow toward the sun, but the root of that flower will always be beneath the surface in darkness. The root of a lot of us does come from darkness, but even that darkness does come from a seed, which is the potential and what the plant can become, of what we can become. And once we do learn to go into the dark roots of who we are and own up to that, then that is when we won't have any internal conflict. And that's when we can fully become the real version of ourselves. Because if you deny any part of yourself, then parts of yourself will deny you, and you will never know who or what you truly are. Now, with that being said, I did talk more about the dark side and the light side, and how understanding both sides, you can become better. And I did talk about the multiverse of the mind. The thing is, no matter how different the multiverse is of within ourselves, it's all connected through something. There is still a source. And at any time, we can fully access those different versions of ourselves, and we can become them. And we can embody them. And sometimes they can actually possess us if we keep them unchecked. And I say that because a lot of people who watched Doctor Strange said that they did not understand Wanda as to why she was the way that she was. And there's so many different ways to explain why Wanda did what she did. But for the sake of this, for the messages, Wanda's dark side was unchecked. She did not truly face her dark side, and that dark side consumed her. She tried to get a hold, tried to get the dark hold and use its power, but at the end of the day, she did not know how to master the conflict in herself, and not being able to really check the conflict within herself. That conflict basically consumed who she dominantly was and what she dominantly experienced. And that can happen to a lot of us, where our pain can be one part of our multiverse, one part of our whole, and we'll keep it unchecked, and it can dominantly take over who we are. It can take over how we think of ourselves, how we create our world, the people that come into our circle, people that we allow to come into our lives. It can affect how we treat people. It can just affect our self-esteem, what direction we want to go to in life, or the direction that we do go to, even if we don't want to go in that direction. It can just influence a lot. And sometimes by hacking into different versions of ourselves and keeping it unchecked, sometimes that version of ourselves is the thing that possesses us dominantly, and that's because it is a wall that is holding us back from becoming a better version of ourselves. And sometimes we have to face the consumption of that inner conflict within us in order to move on from it. Once we are exposed to it, then that's when we have to fight it. We have to face it. What was the whole thing about America and just the character itself? Here's what I'm going to say. America is a place of transparency. Now, when I mentioned Thanos earlier, Infinity War, and the snap, we entered a new era where the future is very flimsy, and what futures we create for ourselves, it's very sensitive. The timelines that we can enter, what we can do, is very sensitive. And in the Avengers Phase 4, the main idea of Phase 4 is not so much of trying to have a direction, it is to create an infinite potential of directions. Phase 4 is actually based on what the spiritual meaning of 2020 actually is, which this decade is, which is the ability to alter and reshape the future. It is a lot easier to do it now. It's not. I actually did a recording on this, and I am a little bit off topic now in this small bracket, but I did talk about previously in a recording that depending on what we feel or what we focus on is actually the timeline that we dominantly experience as people. So a lot of stuff is being kind of thrown at us to make us feel a certain way in order for a certain timeline or multiverse to be experienced collectively. So America has always been a thing, an entity that is actually more in the center of the multiverse, that can actually branch out into a number of universes, because the land itself, the body of America, and I am the character America, the girl that can go through different dimensions. The body of America basically is a place that is influence and a collaboration of many different things put together in one. And what that means is it can dominantly travel or create or pass through an infinite number of possibilities or timelines. Now, I've talked about the multiverse of the mind, the multiverse of dark and light, conflict between all of us, and how the conflict between all of us is just the root core of who we are as a balanced person. And sometimes the darkness in us is just an unchecked version of us, or just a rejected part of us. And I've talked about America and the ability, the power that America had dominantly just a place in the middle of things, and the ability to go through different multiverses. And now, the last thing I'll talk about is love. We all have different sides of ourselves, and so do the people that we care about, and so do the people that we love. There are so many different layers to who we are and what we are. Different people who are at different levels and different understandings of life will see different versions of who we are. Sometimes they will accept those versions of who we are. Sometimes they will reject them. Now, you could be someone who loves somebody else, and that someone else could have a side to them that you can't see because you're not at that level, but someone else could see it. Sometimes the best thing to do is to recognize all versions of each other and of the person that you love. And once you're able to see each part of them, each version of them, can you actually say, hey, I love that part of you. I love who you are. I love and accept this version of you, this side of you. Christina was very different between the two universes that Doctor Strange went to. And even though she was completely different in both universes, it was important to the message and the story to really exploit and talk about how each different version of a person, ourselves, deserves to be accepted and recognized and just considered overall. Doctor Strange looked at Christina and said, it doesn't matter this version or another version, I still love you for who you are. Can you actually love a person for their core of who they actually are? It's so easy to say yes, it's so easy. But then once the person that we love starts to change and become more of who they truly are, once you start getting closer to the heart of who they are, then can you actually still accept them? When Christina saw that Doctor Strange got the dark hold, she even said, you're no different than the Strange of this universe. And Doctor Strange was like, yeah, basically I know. But even though Christina has seen the good side of Strange, she's also seen the bad side of Doctor Strange. And when the good Doctor Strange took the dark hold and it corrupted him, she supported him. And when the demons took over, she told him, hey, you're the master of the arts. She reminded him of who he really was at the core. And once she was there to remind him of who he really was, then Doctor Strange was able to take hold of that darkness that shrouded him, that was around him, that was yelling at him. And once Doctor Strange was able to find the true power within himself, then he was like, oh, this darkness that's around me, I can control that and make it, and I could use it to my advantage. I could master it, basically. And that brings me back to the point of mastering the light and the dark side. But Christina was able to support him and remind him that, hey, this is who you are, and you're capable of doing this thing. So yeah, I'd have to say that Doctor Strange and Christina's love is a very powerful one of the most powerful that I actually have seen in a movie. And it wouldn't seem like it because, the journey of romance is just so consuming, so time consuming with many different movies. But with this Doctor Strange, the core of their love was just so in depth that I have to say that I was deeply touched by the love between Christina and Doctor Strange, to where they could see the best in each other, they could accept the different versions of each other, and they could remind each other, hey, this is your power, this is actually who you are, and I know that you can get through this, that this darkness, you can get past this darkness, And you could use that to find more strength within yourself and find more peace in yourself and more balance once you acknowledge it and you take hold. I felt like Doctor Strange was not actually supposed to be a 100% good movie. The reason why I say that is because the true message and feeling behind Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, was supposed to be about division. It was supposed to be about gliding and exploring through different sides and different realms. It was not supposed to be a story about solidification, mental solidification, or even emotional solidification. Personally, I think that Sam Raimi was perfect for this movie because of that particular idea. Phase 4 is about the division of time, the division of multiverses, and just everything being so divided and it planting seeds to what could be for the future. And in the Multiverse of Madness, I think with Sam Raimi's past, it was perfect to have him direct a direction for an idea that has no direction, but has a potential to evolve in different directions. So for that, I have to say, from a storytelling point of view, that movie actually goes up in score for me. Originally, I'd say it was a 5 out of 10, maybe a 6 out of 10, but because of the deeper understanding of the message and the deeper understanding that the production of the movie reflected the message and the awareness of what the director was trying to do, I would say that the movie would probably be 7.5, maybe to 10, or 8. Maybe 7. A 7.5 feels right. But yeah, I thought this was a good movie. I thought it was a great movie, and yeah, those were my messages for Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Quick recap, or I guess to end the video, I'll just say explore every part of yourself, every version of yourself, because every version of yourself is real. Every version of yourself exists. And the thing is, time doesn't always exist in other worlds. No, when I say that, time doesn't always exist inside of us. Sometimes when we experience a moment, that moment sticks with us somewhere in our emotions, somewhere in our mind, in our memories. They stick with us. And it's because sometimes there isn't any moving forward. It's just dominantly looking at things in an alternate light. And once you look at things in an alternate light, then that's when they dominantly don't seem so bad, but they can be seen as better, because whenever something bad does happen to us, it creates a plethora of possibilities of how we can be affected by something. But it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Sometimes, when we do get affected by something, it is a bad thing, it can be a bad thing. But once we learn how to master that, then we can turn it into strength. We can learn to grow from it. But we do have to face that darkness first. We do have to understand and experience all the different possibilities and multiple points of views of our traumatic situations or things like that are keeping the darkness around us. And once we do explore all of those different versions, then we can, me sounding like a broken record again, then we can learn to evolve from them and master them. And then once we master them, then we unlock a power within us that we never even knew that we had, or we never knew we were capable of. I hope I did this right. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I don't know when I'll do another Marvel movie, but I'm sure I will if the message is right. For the person who did recommend this video, I hope you enjoyed this and watched it or listened to it to the very end. You know what? I actually do have more I want to say about it. There were two different things I wanted to bring up. One was the question that Christina asked Doctor Strange, I believe, or maybe Strange asked Christina. But the question was, are you happy? And a lot of times we say that we're happy when deep down we're really not happy, because there's so many different layers to who we are. There are so many possibilities to of expressing who we are. And a lot of times the many different versions of ourselves, the many different parts of ourselves go unexpressed and misunderstood. And sometimes we settle for what we have, what we are, what is right in front of our face. When deep down, because we haven't gotten to know ourselves fully, we haven't quite found the things that truly make us happy at our core. So that was a big question, I think, for the message of this movie, which is, are you truly happy? And sometimes exploring every version of yourself allows you to master every version, and then from there you can actually find out what truly makes you happy and find out who you truly are. And the last thing I want to bring up is the very ending with Clea. The person that we accept, the version of ourselves that we accept at the time, usually attracts a certain kind of person or attracts certain people to us. And the thing is, once we start to get to know ourselves on a deeper level and we start to change, we start to attract people that reflect that change within us. That also includes love also, as well as friendships, but with love. And the more that you do explore yourself and accept yourself and understand and accept the multiple layers of yourself, then what will end up happening is you will attract someone who is just like you in so many ways. But in order to find a higher version of love and attract a higher version of love that is symbolic to the true nature of who you are, you cannot be willing to accept the true nature of who you are. Once you do that, then you have a more divine version of love. And relationships can be a lot more healthier because you have faced yourself and you understand yourself. But that's all I got for this. And thank you for listening. Do the best you can with what you got and have a great day.